afternoon. This will be my final professional development, and this professional development involves the iPad. How we're going to identify the common problems when when you're dealing with an iPad, and the solutions that you can use to solve the problems for the iPad. Since iPads are been commonly used, at times we do run into technical problems. So in this professional development, I would like to introduce some helpful hints on how you can help your students with their iPads before you submit them to Adam so he can look at them. So without further ado, let's get started. And I'm about to share my screen. Okay, here we go. Now, as you know, Apple is one of the leading technology companies with a range of new products that push the boundaries of how we react with technology. They pioneered the development of portable music players, smartphones, and tablets. I mean, Apple's line of iPads are still among the most popular tablets today. And those are our current devices that our students at Spalding Middle are using every day in their classes. Like all technology, they are susceptible to usual and inconvenient problems. The iPads are no exception. Now, some problems with iPads are well known, and they can be frustrating as you lose time and, most importantly, important data. For the most part, turning the device off and on again can correct any issues, but there are some problems that just can't be avoided that needed a different approach to repair or management. What are the most common problems for iPad technical problems? So let's begin. At times, your iPad may have a frozen screen. Now, the touchscreens are one of the key features of the iPad tablet. So when the screen freezes and stops responding to your pokes, you will become flustered. This is basically a common issue according to Apple support forums. Now, many who diagnosed the freezing problem that found the root cause with a specific app, but it was tough to determine which one is the culprit. Now, here are some possible solutions. With your iPad, you can turn it off and on again. You can hold down your power button to force to restart your iPad. However, if your screen freezes often, this may not be a convenient solution. Now, you may want to restore your iTunes account, but this requires a computer or laptop with iTunes that has been synced to your iPad. Plug your iPad into the computer, open the iTunes account, select your iPad, and select Summary. The downside is that you are at risk of losing things that you did not back up. So it's very important that you save all your valuable data. What if the screen will not turn off? Well, if your screen does not turn on when you turn your iPad off, as is either as you normally would to solve a problem, or because you are forced to restart due to a different issue and it won't turn back on. Here are some possible solutions. Reset, hold down the power and home buttons together until you see the Apple logo appear. Now, newer iPads do not have the home button, but you can use the volume up button instead. You can plug it in, you can recharge it. It may help the tablet restart since it could have quickly drained all the remaining battery. You may also want to try to restore your iTunes account. Go through your iTunes restore process to make your iPad turn back on if the startup screen is frozen before it completes the reboot. What if iTunes do not recognize the device? If you plug into your iPad into a computer to sync it with iTunes or use to restore the program, there is a chance that the computer will not recognize your iPad. So if it doesn't, here are some helpful hints. First, check the battery. Look at the battery icon on the iPad when you have plugged it into the computer. If there is no lightning bolt, the charging port may not work. Try another port to see if it works. Make sure you do an iTunes update. Make sure you have the latest versions of iTunes, which you may have to check manually on your PC or your laptop. Then turn your iPad off. Turn both the iPad and the computer off, restart, and then plug them again. What if your iPad doesn't charge? Now, when I was working with Adam, some of these issues do occur that if your iPad does not charge. So if your iPad does not charge, if you can try using a different port. Check the wall socket with another device to make sure that the outlet works. If these methods don't provide immediate relief, try the following steps. Check the power adapter or cable to see if there are breaks, frays, or problems. You should reboot your iPad to see if that helps. Then move the plug into another port on the iPad. This is basically the most common problems for most of the students when they're dealing with their iPads. At times, what if the iPad cannot connect to their Wi-Fi? Now, the Wi-Fi signals may not always be consistent. You can try disconnecting, then reconnecting to your local Wi-Fi. If that doesn't work, you can try some iPad specific solutions. Make sure you recover the network. Tell your iPad to forget the network by going to settings, tapping the network name, and clicking forget. Then you will restart the iPad and then reconnect to the Wi-Fi network by re-entering the details. Make sure you update your operating systems because they may be out of date. If you do not have automatic updates turned on, go to settings, general, and then software update. Be sure to be sure to plug your iPad into a power adapter before any operating system updates. Then you talk to your tech expert, which in this case could be Adam from Spalding or Ms. Goodson, the librarian. If the Wi-Fi uses your home internet, then of course you would check with the internet service provider. to ensure that you're getting good service. Now in school, you make sure that you informed your tech person, which is Adam or Miss Goodson, about what's going on. So therefore, um, Ms. Goodson will place in the work order, and then the tech guy will check out the work order. What he'll probably have to do is he'll test out the iPad to see if the internet is working with a different server, and if it does, he will have to find out why that why your iPad is not working at certain areas. Now, so far, let's just say like your iPad could be working in my classroom, but it's not working in Miss Aniola's classroom, the seventh graders. So basically, Adam will have to use a tractor to check out the Wi-Fi router to see if everything is online or clicking. So, but if it doesn't, it may have maybe like a yellow orange light, or it's not turned on. But usually, if all your lights are green, so that means that your server is okay. But if it's like a yellow, have like a yellow orange light, then something might be wrong with your Wi-Fi router, and Adam will have to let Jonathan know so he can reboot the Wi-Fi router, and it's just and see if that helps, which it should. Now, if your iPad's running slow, as your technology ages, it will have more memory issues. Charge more slowly, then it may run out battery faster, and generally it will run slower. There are some steps that you can optimize your older iPad so it runs faster. Make sure that you close all your apps regularly. Sometimes that could be a common problem where you have like a bunch of applications running and you don't even know it. But when you do, like if you have the old school iPad, you click on your home pad, and then it'll pull up any apps that you may that's currently running. And what you do, you just wipe them off, and they're off. Second, make sure you restart the device to clear the RAM. That's very important because it's always good to free up space. The more RAM that you have, the more opportunities that you'll have to use your iPad older, or whether it's young or old, without any interference. But it's also important that you free up some space. iPads need about at least 2 gigabytes of space to operate smoothly. Now, of course, that's like equivalent to maybe for like your laptop, it may need up to 10 to 15 gigabytes to run smoothly. But the iPad, just only 2 gigabytes. Check your iPad storage, where you can go to settings and you'll find general, then iPad storage, just to see if you can delete or uninstall any programs that are not beneficial to you. What if the apps will not sync or will not download? If you want a new application on your iPad, you have to open up your iTunes or App Store account. Now, in this case, for the Spalding Middle students, it's like they'll have to go to self-service to download the apps. You may receive application notifications that an update failed to download or install. So if that happens, here are some helpful suggestions. Make sure you clear your space. Check your iPad storage and clear space as needed. New apps may take up more space. Unpause your downloads. You may think your downloads have stopped or failed when it's actually paused. Check it and click the button to unpause if that has occurred. Then turn your restrictions off. Some devices restrictions may prevent you from downloading any apps. If that happens, go to settings, then general, then restrictions, and then you make sure you download your applications. Then you restart. Disconnect from mobile data, Wi-Fi, or any other server may have caused a problem. Now, if that happens, restart your iPad and it can help the downloading restart. Now, what if all these tricks, these ideas, suggestions don't work? If that's the case, then Apple can help you with the solutions at their retail stores or online. Now, remember, we have techs all over the district, so you make sure that you fill out your work order or notify your teacher so they can fill out the work order. And when that comes, which is probably around either Wednesday or Thursday, he'll check it out and then he'll see what's what. So if you now personally, if you have your iPad for some time and you want to upgrade anyway, it may be time for you to sell your iPad. Now you can either trade it for a discount on the latest model, or you can just get a different tablet altogether. Now here's a video clip to reiterate about tech solutions when you're dealing with your iPad.
So there's no mistaking that the iPad is probably one of the best multitaskers and also one of the best portable devices you can have, but it's not without its issues. And in this video, we're going to actually go over 5 of the most common iPad issues you may have. And we're also going to go over how to fix those issues. So stay tuned. Let the download begin. So if you're new here and you want to learn how to use and troubleshoot your devices, plus some other cool tech stuff, all you need to do is hit that subscribe button and that bell for notification so you don't miss a thing. So we're going to jump right into it. But before we do, I just want to let you know that if any of the troubleshooting steps that we mentioned in this video doesn't address the problem that you're currently having, then your next best step is always to reach out to Apple. I'm going to make sure to have the Apple support information in the description of this video. So if these troubleshooting steps don't fix your issue, your next step is to check out those links and numbers and give Apple a call. So one of the first issues we're going to take a look at is severe battery drain of any kind. If your iPad just isn't sustaining the battery long enough, or if you notice your battery life has been cut short, here are a couple things you can actually check to make sure that your iPad is running at optimal battery strength. So interestingly enough, the first thing you want to do is, if your iPad hasn't been restarted in a while, some people just don't restart their iPads at all. Your best bet is to just restart the iPad. And restarting the iPad is actually fairly simple. You're going to press the volume button down on the side, and you're also going to press your power button. You're going to hold those two together and you'll get a screen that displays like this, showing that you can power off the iPad, and then you would just slide to power it off and power it back on. Doing that power cycle can actually help with any kind of power drain because it completely just discharges anything that's currently running on your iPad that may be draining your battery. And also a quick reboot of any electronic device ends up fixing a lot of issues that you may not even know is a problem. So it's always good to reboot at least once or twice a week. Now on the hardware side, you also want to check your charger for the iPad. You want to make sure you're using an Apple certified charger and making sure that that charger is working the way that it's supposed to. I guess the easiest way to do that is to try to plug that charger into another device. These support a USB Type-C, so if you have a USB Type-C phone, you can plug that charger in and make sure that it's charging that device the way it's supposed to. Also try cleaning out the charging port. Sometimes there's some debris or lint or anything that can kind of get into the charging port to prevent the charger from making a proper connection. Clean that out and then give it another charge and see if that helps your battery issues. You also want to make sure that your iPad is currently running the most updated version of iPad OS. You do that just by going into your general settings and then going into software update, having the iPad checked to make sure that there are no current software updates available. As long as it's saying that there isn't an update available, you're at the most current version, so you should be good to go on that end. So another thing you could do is disable any kind of background app refreshes that may be happening, causing your battery to drain. If you have an application that refreshes a lot or grabs a lot of information in the background, you may just want to disable that, especially if you don't need it to do so. You don't need the app to have updated information continuously. Some of these apps can grab a lot of data, and that app refresh in the background can end up killing your battery a ton. And the way you do that is you just go into your settings, and if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you kind of get a list of all the applications that you currently have installed in your iPad, and you would just tap one of the applications and you have the background app refresh option there, and you would just basically tick that off, and that app will no longer refresh in the background. Now you can kind of go through your apps and see which ones you don't mind not having up-to-date data. Any app will of course refresh the moment you open it. So if you can wait a couple of seconds on any of these applications, you can just shut that off, and that will end up saving you a ton of battery on your iPad. So another option that you have, a lot of people don't do, but it ends up fixing a lot of the issues you may have with your device, is just resetting the overall settings of the device itself. So if you go into your general and then you scroll to the bottom and you have that reset option, if you reset all settings there, it'll ask for a password because you're basically resetting the settings of the iPad itself. But resetting these settings can get everything back to a factory default standing. Now, bear in mind, it doesn't delete anything that you have in the iPad itself. It's just removing the settings that you've set up on the iPad, and some of those settings may be conflicting and causing your battery to drain. So getting yourself back to a default standing can help with this issue. So just go in, reset the settings, do another double check, and see if that fixes your problem. Now, if you do still have a severe battery drain issue after following these steps and you're still not able to fix the problem, then you can go in and actually do a full system reset on your iPad and restore it from a backup, a good known backup that you have in your iCloud account. And it's basically in the same place that you would go to reset the settings of the iPad itself, but instead of the settings, you're going to erase all content and settings, and this will basically just completely erase and wipe the iPad. Now, bear in mind that it is erasing everything. You're going to go back to as if you purchased the iPad from the store yesterday or today, and you'd have to reset back up your account. That's why it's always good to have a good known backup. That way you're restoring from a backup that's pretty good to go, and then you can see if there's something else that's causing the issue. Again, if none of these fix the problem, then it could be something deeper that's going on with the iPad itself, and you want to reach out to Apple at that point so they can continue the troubleshooting on a hardware level. Okay, so the next issue we're going to take a look at is if you're having some difficulties connecting to your Wi-Fi, or having some Wi-Fi drop-offs, or just signal issues in general with the iPad. You can follow some of these steps in order to fix those problems. So ironically, first thing you want to do is, if you're having a connection failed issue, is just turn on the airplane mode on your device. So you can just swipe down from the top to get to your action center. You turn on that airplane mode. What that does is it basically just puts everything off. It turns off all connections, all Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, any kind of connections you have going to your iPad is automatically powered off. Leave it off for a couple of seconds just for the connections to completely die out, and then you can power airplane mode back off and let all the connections reconnect. Once the connections have reconnected, then you can check to make sure those connections are stable again. Try accessing a website, try getting to where you were initially trying to go before, and see if the connection is working. If it's not, then we'll move on to the next step. And that next step is just to do some exploratory checking to make sure that your router is working. So check on another device to make sure you're able to access the internet in the area that you're in. If you're not, then it may be the router itself. If you are, then it definitely is your iPad, and you may just want to try to reset your iPad. Similar to what we did in the last troubleshooting issue that we had, you're just going to press the volume down button and the power button down together, hold them down until the power off option appears. You slide that off, and then the iPad is reset. Leave it off for about maybe 5 to 10 seconds, power it back on, and then see if that fixes your problem. So now, if that doesn't work, your next step is going to be to forget the Wi-Fi signal itself. If you go into your Wi-Fi options, you have the forget Wi-Fi option here on top. It'll completely just eliminate that Wi-Fi option from your iPad. Then you will just turn the Wi-Fi off, leave it off for a couple of seconds, turn it back on, let it search through the available networks. When you see the network that was giving you the issue reappear, then just initiate a new reconnection with the password and SSID that you need to connect to that particular network, and then do a quick test once more to see if you're back up and running. Now, also another thing you want to do is try to reset your network settings. So if you go into your general settings, at the bottom you have the reset option there, and if you just go down, you have the reset network settings option there. You can ask for your password, of course. Input the password. What this is going to do is just reset all the network settings that you have saved in your iPad. Any network connection that you have saved is going to get reset, washed completely clean, and then you just initiate a new reconnection to those networks. A lot of times, sometimes you may have a stale password or stale SSID inside the iPad itself. Resetting those network settings helps fix that issue. Now, if none of those options work, then you may have something wrong with the Wi-Fi antenna in your iPad. Try connecting to a different network to see if that works. If it's not working and you're not able to connect to any Wi-Fi networks, then the antenna itself may be damaged. And at this point, you know what to do. You definitely have to reach out to Apple, because it's now a hardware issue and they just have to look into it a little bit further and get that fixed for you. So the next issue we're going to take a look at is any kind of intermittent touching or intermittent unresponsiveness when you're touching on the screen or moving around on the screen itself. If you're noticing that you're having some areas of time where the iPad just isn't responding the way that it's supposed to, you can try to follow these steps to see if that fixes that issue. One of the first things I like to do is just take like a microfiber cloth and just clean off off your screen. You'd be surprised or shocked just how often a dirty screen or unresponsiveness can be attributed to the screen itself just not being clean, or dust or anything just kind of interfering with the touch mechanisms on the screen itself. Clean off the screen, give it a try, see if that helps. Hopefully it is that simple. If not, we'll move on to the next thing. Try resetting the iPad itself. Again, the volume button down plus the power button until that power off option appears. Slide it, leave it off for a couple seconds, power it back up. Try removing any cases or any screen protectors you have on the iPad itself. Take those off, see if the screen is still unresponsive. If that's the case, check for any updates in the general settings and update to make sure you're at the latest iOS update. Next, you want to go into your settings, accessibility, touch, and touch accommodations, and you want to make sure that it's turned off. A lot of times this is turned on, and that can cause a lot of the issues. A lot of users found that just turning this option off help fixes any kind of intermittent touch or display issues they have with their iPad. You also just want to try disconnecting all Bluetooth devices. The easiest way to do that really is to turn off your Bluetooth, and you can just go in here, power this down, and then that basically just removes any Bluetooth devices you have. From there, just experiment with the iPad to see if those intermittent touch issues still remain. If they do, then we can try disabling the tap to wake feature. That helps with some issues as well. So if you go into your general settings, and we're going to go back to accessibility, and then you're going to go into touch, and then you have your tap to wake feature there. So you can try disabling that tap to wake feature, resetting or rebooting your iPad, powering it back up, and see if that fixes the issue. What do you do if your iPad is just running super slow? It's not opening applications the way that it's supposed to. Again, one of the first things, ironically, you need to do is just try resetting the iPad. You'll see that it is a common theme throughout all the troubleshooting steps. If you're ever experiencing any kind of issues that is off kilter or just weird with your iPad itself, try a reboot first. A lot of times a reboot will help fix a lot of issues you may have, but if not, then the next thing you want to do is check the storage space. So you just kind of want to go in and look at your storage to make sure you're not maxing out in any particular area, making sure that you have substantial storage for your iPad to move fluently and do everything that it needs to do app-wise and just processing-wise. Storage does play a big component or a key role in how your iPad does function, so checking your storage to make sure you have enough is definitely going to be one of those troubleshooting steps you don't want to skip over. Your next step is just to take account to what applications you currently have open, and then start closing apps accordingly and checking the fluidity of the iPad to see if it's increased. As you close applications, the background processes may close out as well. So, and then just close out some of the background app refreshes as well to see if that helps to fix the issue. You can also try resetting your network settings. Again, that's going to be in general, reset, and you can try resetting your network settings and your overall settings on the iPad itself to see if that helps as well. And if none of that works, then your next best step is to just erase all the content and settings of the iPad and reset it back to factory settings to see if that helps fix the slowness of the iPad. So one of the last issues we're going to take a look at is if your Safari on the iPad itself is not working properly, if it's running slow, or if tabs are inexplicably closing without your knowledge. Then you can go in and check a lot of the settings inside the general settings of Safari itself. So you just scroll down until you find Safari, and when you're in Safari you have a ton of different options here that you kind of look at. But if you're having any kind of performance issue with tabs, first of all, one of the first things you want to do is scroll down to the tab section here, and you just want to make sure that the close tab option here is set to manual. Sometimes this is set to a different option, and after one day, a week, or a month, this setting actually makes the tabs close out automatically after a day, after a week, after a month. So if you find that your tabs are inexplicably getting closed out and you want to set it to manual, bear in mind the more tabs you have open, the more processing your iPad is actually doing, and that can actually affect the speed of the iPad overall. So just kind of keep in mind how many tabs you have open at one time, but this will give you the ability to manually control which tabs are open on your iPad. Now, you do also have the ability to clear any kind of cached information or cached data from Safari itself. Sometimes some stale cached or stale information can cause Safari to crash or to constantly restart or just not to work the way it's supposed to. So try going in, clearing that data to see if it helps, fixes any issues you have. Remember, when you clear the data, just do a quick restart on Safari if it's open. My suggestion would be to close it out prior to doing this, but if you do just go through and do it while it's open, then just close Safari and reopen it, and then do some testing to see if that fixes the problem. Another thing you want to check is the request desktop websites option. This is a feature that gives you the full desktop version of websites on your iPad itself. It usually works perfectly from time to time, but if you're having issue with a specific website, you can go in and actually shut this option off, try accessing that website and turn it back on to see if that helps fixes the issue. It's still kind of a new thing that the iPad is doing, so from time to time I've found that some website it just kind of weirds out for some weird reason, but turning that option off and then back on does help fix the problem. And then if you go into your advanced settings, you have your website data here, and you can actually just go through and clear this out. It'll load all the information on the websites that you're visiting. It'll show you exactly how much information it's storing inside your iPad, and then you can either remove singular websites or just remove all websites altogether. And then also just look at your JavaScript settings. Some websites actually require JavaScript to be enabled in order for you to access it. So if you're finding that you're having an issue with any specific website and your JavaScript is turned off, try enabling that JavaScript option and then trying that website once more to see if that fixes the problem as well. Like I said, guys, I hope this video helped you get started with just troubleshooting any of the offhand issues you may have with your iPad so you can get full functionality out of your device the way that you're definitely supposed to. If you enjoyed the video, please go ahead and smash that like button. It definitely helps the channel and it helps services the YouTube algorithm. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that bell for notification if you're not already subscribed to the channel. Go ahead and check out some of the other videos we have on the channel, both for troubleshooting and just overall fun tech stuff. Thanks guys for checking out the video, and until next time, peace.
Okay, I hope that video was very helpful, especially when you're learning how to do things for yourself, because I tell you, you can very easily, you can get like a lab tech, then it'll cost a lot of money. But if you learn how to do things for yourself, that will help you out. And then you'll learn more about these technology devices. But that concludes the presentation on the latest common problems dealing with the iPad and the helpful troubleshooting hints and solutions that will be needed to solve your common problems. Thank you.